This episode is proudly sponsored by CyberGuru, an AI-powered cybersecurity training platform built by real SOC analysts. Whether you are just starting out or sharpening your blue team skills, a CyberGuru lets you train with real alerts in a virtual SOC environment. Learn to investigate, detect, and respond just like in the real world, with hands-on labs, realistic scenarios, and a free community edition to get started. The CyberGuru is designed to help you grow as a cyber defender. Learn more at acyberguru.io. Train like it's real, because one day it will be.
You're listening to the Women in Cybersecurity podcast, where global voices meet to inspire, inform, and ignite change in the world of cyber. Hosted by Yuri Diogenes, Alexandra Francu, and myself, Yulia Iancu, we bring you real stories, expert insights, and bold conversations from the front lines of cybersecurity. Now let's dive into today's episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Women in Cybersecurity podcast. As you know, every almost week we have a great invite. Our guest today is amazing. Alexa will tell you more about it. So take your headphones and let's start the podcast with episode 2. Hello, everyone. So we're thrilled to welcome Christina Morillo, a powerhouse in the world of cybersecurity. Christina is the Senior Director and Head of Information Security at the New York Football Giants, where she leads with deep commitment to enterprise security. With a rich background as a technology executive, author, also trusted advisor, she's known for building and maturing security programs that make a real impact. She's also a passionate voice for inclusion. Christina co-created the groundbreaking Women of Color in Tech photo series, a project that has transformed how women of color are represented in media and tech publications around the world. So very warm welcome, Christina. Nice to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Christina, my friend, it's great to see you again after so many years. I met Christina at Microsoft. She used to work at Microsoft, and she just really wanted to expand her wings and do great things outside of Microsoft. I'm very proud of everything you've done, not only at Microsoft, but outside of Microsoft. So thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from you, because I feel like you are the powerhouse. So excited to be here.
No, my friend, it's an honor. And I want to start this conversation talking a little bit about our background. When you were at Microsoft, you were very specializing in identity. And I think you carry on the importance of identity security for a long time. Do you still translate that to the work that you do today? Do you still very focus on identity, or you are more broad scope these days?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I joined Microsoft, I actually joined on the Azure security side. So I was working more with Azure information protection and, classification, categorization, all that fun stuff. And then I went back to my identity roots and moved to the identity engineering org. And so, yes, to answer your question, it infuses everything I do. When I join an organization, that's the first thing I look at. I assess identity. I look at, as they say, identity is like the new perimeter. I don't feel like it's the new perimeter. I feel like it's always been the part of the perimeter, a big part of the perimeter. And so while I don't focus on identity any longer, I'm now more so in like a CISO position. So I look at everything, at the entire control plane. I look at the entire ecosystem. I built the program from the ground up and continue to mature the program for the organization. Identity is still a core part of that. So
yeah, awesome.
Tell us a bit about yourself, Christina. And we would be very curious to know also what a day in the life of Christina looks like.
Oh my God. Yeah. So I'm originally from New York City, born and raised. I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. A lot of times people don't talk about that, but, and for a long time in my career, I never spoke about that. But I think it's important to showcase that there, you can be successful and have a life, right? And have love and have children and have a family. It's not one or the other, right? There's no such thing as balancing. It's all about prioritizing. I've been in technology for, I would say, I'm aging myself a little bit here, but almost 30 years. I started my career in IT. And so like the traditional, right? I was very technical, started out on a help desk. I was building computers. I was running patch cables through plenums. I was configuring Cisco routers. So I kind of like went that route. And then when I graduated college, or before I graduated college, actually, while my friends were getting jobs at the mall, I tried that and I was like, this is not going to work for me. Let me get like a help desk job or tech support job so that I can start building my portfolio, right, of experience. So I did that. And by the time I graduated college, I had experience. So I was able to land a job fairly quickly. Now, it was a different time back then. So I was lucky that I was born in that when I was born, right? And so I kind of like hit the ground running, right? Learning all that I could, moved from like IT help desk to system administrator, then network administrator. And then I landed a job doing identity. Back then it was not called security, for a financial services company here in New York City, like on Wall Street, right? It was actually a reinsurance company that had a financial services division. And so they hired me not because I necessarily had security experience. At the time, it was not called security. They hired me because I knew Active Directory really, really well, right? Of course, because as a sysadmin, you had to know Active Directory, create users, provision users, deprovision users. So I kind of spoke the language. And that was when I got my first role in an IT security department focused on identity and access management. And that was my entryway. So I always like to say that my entryway into, like, I stumbled into security. It was like, I don't want to say it was by accident, but like it wasn't a strategic thing. Like, oh, I'm going to start in security, because at that time, no one was talking about that. It was all pretty much IT, right? Or part of IT. And so that's pretty much how I started in my career. Then all that time, I kind of like worked in identity, and with my tech background, it was super helpful for me. That's what kind of carried me through. And then when I landed at Microsoft, I knew nothing about the cloud. And at Microsoft, I was there about 4 years. That's where I got all of my experience in terms of like cloud security and also what cloud identity looked like, right? Because it was not, even though at the time it was called Azure Active Directory, it was not Active Directory, right? So I had to kind of learn about that paradigm shift and figure out how organizations were operating and what the term hybrid actually meant in practice. So I kind of navigated that world. And then that led me to this opportunity. I'm new to sports, fairly new. I've been here 2 years now. No experience in sports. Didn't even understand football. I was like, I don't watch that. Like, I don't, that was actually an interview question. Do you watch football? I was like, no, I don't know I don't know anything about football. But the goal was to, hire their first information security officer and to build the program from scratch, right? And based on requirements from the NFL. And so that's what I did. So I kind of, because of my like vast experience, there were areas that I was not well versed in, right? Like incident response. I didn't work in an incident response position, but because of my IT background, I'm able to pivot pretty rapidly. And so then I basically had to learn the entire scope, right? Like, now my hands are everywhere. Like when we talk about application security, when we talk about, obviously cloud security, when we talk about, hybrid, when we talk about on-prem, check. When we talk about GRC, check. When we talk about SecOps, check. So like I had to learn what I did not know, still learning, always learning, right? And then leverage my prior experience to kind of catapult me forward. So yeah. That's a long-winded version of a little bit about me.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
I'm very curious. What does security look like in a sports environment?
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to every other environment, right? At the end of the day, it's still a business, same business operations. We have HR, we have marketing. The only thing is that our business or our product is football, right? So it's pretty visible. We have the same issues, same problems. So, we have the same conversations, right? We talk about detection, we talk about data protection, and we implement the same type of controls, right? We follow similar frameworks. So I would say no different than any other organization. Maybe the scale is a little bit different, right? Because when you look at the organizations, football organizations are pretty much, there are exceptions, but they're pretty small in terms of the organization itself. But the brand is very large, right? So you have to kind of deal with the optics of that. So, it introduces a couple of other risks. But in terms of like the core foundational stuff, it's pretty much the same as any other business.
Okay.
Wow, Christina, that's an impressive experience that you just described. And I saw that you had you hold significant amount of leadership roles. How did you break through the challenges of being a woman?
That's so interesting because I was actually listening to your first episode on my way home earlier this week. And I know that conversation, and I was hoping that you would ask me the question because I think for a long time, a lot of us like to talk about imposter syndrome. And I will tell you that I remember early on listening to people talk about imposter syndrome. And I was like, what is that? Right. And I don't know if it's because of my New York upbringing, New York kind of tough, like whatever, I'll fight you type of thing and the attitude. But for me, it's been like, I've always been competitive with myself and also understanding that I have what it takes. I've always had what it takes and I can compete with any man, any woman, any cat, dog, whatever at any point. So I've always had this confidence that like, I don't have imposter syndrome because that's a lie. That's made up. That's something that people make up to keep you second guessing yourself, right? And what has helped me actually is being in a lot of leadership rooms, right? Whether internally, just more so externally when I attend a lot of these events and I have these conversations. The fact that I'm knowledgeable, I know what I'm talking about, and I can compete at that level with men who maybe some people would be like, oh my God. I realized that, they don't know as much as me to begin with, right? We're maybe they don't even know enough, right? Maybe they don't have that experience. So I have nothing to be fearful of. And I don't see being a woman as a slight. I see it as almost a competitive advantage, right? Because I'm able to juggle, I'm able to prioritize, I'm able to run circles, I'm able to be a mother and juggle that while juggling a full-time job, right? And a career and also ambition, pushing myself forward. So for me, it's just like being a woman is like, yeah, I'm a woman. And sometimes you get the little comments and the little questions, but that just like fuels my intensity, right? Almost like an athlete. I'm not athletic, but it's almost like an athlete, right? It's just like, what? Like, oh, okay, let's go, right? Like, let's see what's up, right? And so I like to impart that to just women in general. Like, don't look at being a woman as a negative. Look at it as being advantageous, right? Because I feel like we have a lot more skills, including empathy, and our EQ levels are, I think, extremely high. So we can absorb, we can learn, we can pivot quickly. And that's a competitive advantage that we don't talk about, right? So that's how I've dealt with it.
I love this mindset. Definitely not the victim mindset, the opposite, the winner mindset,
Right.
which I knew you had that, but I love that you asked that question because you also probably saw with experience of working in different companies that this momentum that we live of empowering women to do things, I think it got some hype and awareness, which is good. But I also see a lot of weaponization of some terms. For example, every time that someone comes to me and say, oh, Yuri, I love what you're doing for women in cybersecurity, such a great ally. I was like, please don't call me ally. I think that this word is misused. I see a lot of men that says that I'm a lie. I'm a lie, and they do nothing. They just want to be on the list of allies, but they actually don't do anything to make it happen. So I identify myself as a mentor, as a coach, as a friend, but I don't really like this specific word because, as I said, it was weaponized by people that just want to capitalize, say that they are doing something, but they are not actually doing. And what's your take on that?
Right. I mean, if there's no action behind it, then it's not, it has no meaning, right? And so I think that the real allies don't call themselves allies, because why? Why do you have to put a label, right? You're going to do the thing. Just do the thing, right? Whether that's recommending someone for a role, whether that's mentoring someone, whether that's demoing, a solution or how you think about solving a problem, right? Reverse engineering a problem together. It's helping them. In basketball, it's called the alley-oop, right? Where you're like helping that person. Why do you need to call yourself anything? Just kind of do the thing. So that's my take on it. I don't believe in that either. I don't believe in the whole allyship as a term in general,
Yep,
right? I think
I
I
agree.
look at more of the action.
Yeah, you have to walk the talk. And also the old term, talk is cheap. So just do the action and don't try to capitalize, label. I don't like the labels. I like it. Just take the action and make it happen. That's it.
Exactly. Correct.
Just related to that, you mentioned that you are keen, you are a fan of creating space for others. And I was wondering, did some moment in time happen that you were given this opportunity, this path that shaped you, who you are today, and your cybersecurity chosen path?
I don't know that it was a moment in time. I think it may be a collection of moments, right? I think, coming from like a diverse background and I didn't necessarily, I was raised in New York City. I attended New York City public schools, right? I went to private colleges. I didn't go to Harvard. I didn't go to MIT. So I had to kind of figure out what that looked like for me personally, right? So I'm a fan of kind of cultivating and just carving your own path and not doing what everyone else is doing for the sake of being part of the crowd, right? For me, what that looks like is, I had an opportunity during COVID actually to write a book with O'Reilly. So the folks at O'Reilly reached out. And so it was a compilation, right? It's called 97 Things Every Information Security Professional Should Know. And for me, I thought it was a great opportunity to not only reach out to folks that I knew that were already super like famous and super successful in the security space, but also elevate folks that were entry level, folks that were curious, folks that wanted to break in. So what I did is I actually planned to have collaborators or contributing authors, and they didn't know who else was contributing. So I took a few people that I knew that were already heavy hitters, and then I took a lot of people that were not heavy hitters, right? So what that ended up being was this like big, sweet compilation of authors that didn't know they were going to be in a book together, right? And I think that's important, right? Because now they share some kind of connection. And it really wasn't premeditated. It was just something like, oh, maybe I shouldn't tell each other. Like I shouldn't tell them, and I should just surprise them with, oh, you're going to be in a book with this person who's very well known in the industry, right? And it was like a surprise. So those are the little things, also, I think also making space is also showing up, right? A lot of times I'm like, oh, I'm so tired. I don't want to show up to this event. But I think it's important for me to show up. It's important for me to represent, because it's not about me. It's about me opening the doors for the people behind me. If I show up and I am my full authentic self to a certain extent, right? And I represent who I am, then it'll become the norm. At least that's my hope. So when the next person that looks like me, whether she has her hair curly or straight or whatever, or speaks with an accent, it's like, oh, no, of course, because, I remember Christina and she's like amazing and she was able to reach these heights. So that's kind of like my ulterior motive a lot of times, when I'm like, oh, I'm so tired. I'm like, let me get a Red Bull and just go to this event, right? And just like, just kind of show up. I don't know if that answers your question. I hope so, but.
Yes. And I hope the authors were all getting along between them.
They do, yeah. I mean, well, they didn't know, right? Like I was the center point, so everything would come through me. And then when the book was released, that's when they saw like, oh my God, I'm in a book with so-and-so, right? So it was an exciting time.
Christina, I love that you are very, very confident and it just transpires. And I really like hearing that from you. And I want to ask you if there is maybe a story in your cybersecurity experience that changed the way you lead or changed the way you see cybersecurity? Maybe it really gets to be talked about. What you would like to share with us?
You know, it's funny because I think it's one of those things that changes for me often, right? I think based on my current experiences, my mindset shifts. I think one of the things with cybersecurity, right, or just information security, is that it's not one size fits all, right? We always like to talk about the basics and foundational, but it really depends on the organization. It really depends on the organization's maturity. So you can't just like copy paste or just plug everything in, right? And so one of the things that I realized, especially leaving Microsoft and kind of like leaving the vendor space, right, was that organizations function very differently and are at different levels in, you know, in their maturity kind of like life cycle. And not every organization is going to want to do all things security, right? And not every organization has metrics and, you know, strategy and all of that stuff. So one of the things, like, it's not a specific story, but one of the things that I realize is that you really have to come in with like this, like, clear your brain almost from like, you know, previous experiences, and think when you start out a new organization and meet the organization where it's at, right? Understand the organization, understand the motivations, understand what they care about before you start implementing things or looking at fixing, right? And so that's what I would say. I think, you know, I think there's power in like the pivot. That's one thing that I've learned. I think that it's okay to, you know, have this growth mindset. That's one of the things I learned at Microsoft, that, you know, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to pivot. And it does not mean that you're failing, right? It's about progress, like incremental progress, not perfection. So I would say, generally speaking, that's my take on that. There isn't one specific story. I mean, there's like a million stories that like I just kind of like put together, right, that shape my experience and continue to shape my experiences.
I'm gonna switch gears a little bit here, because since you are in this leadership role and you've been on leadership roles for some time now, how you see this growth of AI, not only on the cybersecurity space, but also to replace some tasks. For example, I was talking to a friend of mine that managed a incident response team, and he said, well, right now we are not even hiring pen testers. We probably have 2 pen testers and 3 agents doing the job.
Yeah.
Do you see that this is really going to take off, and are you already looking for solutions like that?
So yes and no. I think it's not a one-sided view for me. I think that it will alleviate in terms of some repetitive tasks. But I do think that we still need the human brain. I don't think we're there yet. I think we may get there. You know, AI tools and capabilities may evolve. But based on my testing and when I've looked at in terms of like some integrations and, you know, third-party SaaS tools that we use, security tools that have AI components, there's still some work to do, right? So I think that right now, today, it would be, I don't know, I think it would be not smart to like lay off 1,000 folks just because of the promise of AI, right? Today, I think my mind will probably change in 2 or 3 years, depending on the evolution, or not, right? It could just be a big fail. I don't know. I think there are a lot of great capabilities. I don't think that every organization is ready, right? I think that there's still organizations that are very traditional and still appreciate like the power of the human brain. But I think ultimately we will still need human involvement, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that
Yep.
these security is very complex. I think it was Yulia, you mentioned about the power of the creativity in terms of security and how important that is in these roles. I don't think any AI today, any AI tool can replace that, right? But I think for smaller tasks, maybe that, you know, the SOC performs, like intelligence or looking at anomalies, threat detection, I think that there's potential there, but I don't know that a lot of organizations are rushing it. I think there's a lot of fear still. There's a lot of
Yeah, I
fun.
think you're right on the level of maturity of the company. It will vary if you are mature enough or if you're not. It will fit better or not. So I fully agree on that point. Yeah.
Yep.
Very much related to this, since you have significant years under your belt in leadership positions, what is your take on the changes that perhaps are still needed when it comes to hiring in cybersecurity leadership roles?
I think when it comes to hiring in all cyber roles, I honestly think that in leadership roles, there's a dearth of people with experience that matters, right? And when I say that, I'm not only talking about the technical experience, but I think that I want to say that there are a lot of leaders that I don't know how they got into leadership roles, because I feel like it's very difficult to break. It's very difficult to break in, and I think they have a very narrow view, which makes things very difficult, right? I think you have to take more of a broad view, almost like a global view, because if not, you won't necessarily be successful. And so I think that that's an issue. But I also think on the other side of the spectrum, going back to organization's maturity, I think there are a lot of folks in upper management roles, like the CEO, like executive positions, that don't necessarily understand security. So for a lot of senior leaders, this is a very big expense, right? We're buying new products, we're talking about defense in depth, and they're like, well, what's the ROI, right? Are we any safer? Are we secure, right? And so I think a lot of people get stuck on explaining that or articulating that point. And so you see a lot of folks in like CISO positions and executive positions switch jobs every 2 years, right? Because there's a communication breakdown, there's a lack of support, right? That it's like a domino effect. You can't communicate that, or it's difficult to communicate because it is. Sometimes it's difficult for that to land. You don't get the support, you don't get the budget, you don't get the head count, right? Which is a problem, right? So, if you're not going to be successful, you end up going somewhere where you may be a little bit more successful. So I think there's still not enough good maybe marketing in terms of what it is that we do and how we are not just an IT function, but like a business function, managing risk. And so that's a problem. And then on the other side of the spectrum, in terms of entry level, we can have a whole different discussion on that. It'll take hours because that's another complicated one. And in all honesty, I would love to hire 10 entry level folks and train them. But again, we go back to the organization's maturity, bandwidth, support, budget. And if I got headcount today, I could not hire an entry level person. I could not, because I would need someone that has at least some subset of experience to be able to take the ball and run with it, no pun intended. And so it becomes very difficult, especially in smaller organizations where you want more than anything to be able to bring people in, but because of the setup, there's no bandwidth for that, right? So it becomes very difficult for entry-level folks to get a foot in the door. So yeah, that's a whole complicated discussion.
I have a question for you, because you've overseen so many organizations from a security point of view, and not only. So is there some kind of mindset that remained during the time that is maybe outdated, or any security myth that you've seen come across the organizations?
I'll tell you, most organizations, this is my first true pure leadership role where I have the opportunity to build the cyber program. What I will tell you is that there are a lot of myths. I don't even know where to start with that, because I feel like the one pet peeve I have is thinking that security is just an IT function, right? When we talk about cybersecurity, it's just an IT thing. And it's no, it's not. That's part of it, but that's not all of it, right? And so the problem is that then we end up being siloed, and we end up, typically reporting to the head of IT or the CTO or whatever. And so that keeps us in this little box where we need to kind of expand our tentacles across the organization, right? To look at vulnerabilities and just risks just across the entire organization. So I think that's one myth. I think also the fact that, a lot of people think that security set it and forget it. Oh, we bought a tool, we turned it on, we're done, right? That it's not a constant evolution. It's not constantly reevaluating, implementations, configurations, strategy, technical implementations, processes, the people. It's constant, it's ongoing. It's not one and done. So I think that's another And I think, I mean, there's so many. I don't even know where to start with that, because it's like, yeah, I could talk for hours about all the myths. I honestly think that in a lot of cases, we're not necessarily valued. Again, we're looked at as almost like IT, a business expense. Now, I'd make the case that, if everybody in IT walks out, and security, if we all walked out, how many business people could be productive that day? Probably zero, right? And so I'd make the case that we're not, we're a very integral part of an organization. We're not just a business expense, but from a business and financial perspective, we are looked at as a cost center, right? And so that's a huge myth. I think we need to be elevated a bit more, so that there's more kind of teeth behind security. Yeah.
How about we play a game, Julia?
Oh, the hat?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, we have a hat game. We have a blue hat and a red hat, and you have to
Okay.
choose which one the next question comes from.
Okay.
So Yulia physically has the hat with her.
Yeah, I physically have the hats. They're just
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, that's so cool. I love it.
one is offensive, one is defensive. Which subject would you like to go into?
Okay, I will do defense. Let's go with blue.
A defensive one. Okay. Anyway, it's actually written in. Okay, so this is fun.
Look at that. How cool.
Look at this. What's the most powerful IAM control that defenders underutilize?
IAM, you said, right?
Yes.
Oh, that's a good one. All right, can I be biased?
Yes,
Sure.
of course.
Okay, I'm gonna be super biased. And I'm gonna say, for organizations that are M365s and leverage Entra, conditional access. Like, seriously. Like, I think it's so underestimated. I think folks don't understand the power, and they don't use it. Like, they should use it. And that is so frustrating. But I understand it's a little bit complex. It's not very user friendly for the most part, but that's a very good control. In terms of IAM,
Love
in
it.
terms of SaaS applications, in terms of implementing MFA, there's so much you could do, and I think it's underutilized.
Love it. And fully agree. One question. Do you want to go, Yulia, or let me you to go?
Go ahead, Yuri.
Okay, sorry. Because I'm very curious about this. Why do you think that there's still a gap as a hire manager? I'm pretty sure that you've been in hire manager panels for jobs and to hire people. Why do you still feel that there is still a gap in terms of applicants when we look at male and female applying for a cybersecurity job? Why is still so male predominant in, at least when you open a position?
Yeah.
I myself experienced that many times as a hire manager, and I believe you did too. But why you think is that?
Yeah, I think it's because, going back to the confidence conversation, I think there are a lot of women that enter cybersecurity from non-technical or non-traditional backgrounds. And I think that there's like this confidence factor, like, oh, I'm not technical. And a lot of women are afraid to apply, right? They may see like, implementing firewall controls and think, oh, I don't know how to do that. I'm not technical. Or, so a lot of times it's because of the job specs, right? The job recs, like the way that they're written and worded are not inclusive all the time. That being said, I think men tend to be a little bit more stronger in that area, where even if they don't know something, they may not ever have had hands-on experience configuring a firewall, but they're just like, oh, I'm going to apply for this job, right? Because I can learn it and I can figure it out. Whereas women, I feel like we feel that when we look at a job rec, we have to check all of the boxes, or at least 95% of the boxes, before we hit submit. So I think that's a big factor. At least that's from what I've seen. Yeah.
I have one follow-up question for this, because there are many layers of being technical. You can be technical at a coding level, at a software level, at maybe a cloud level, or theoretical, and so on. Sometimes I see this difference made as if you do not know coding, then you might not be able to go into cybersecurity. What's your take on that?
No, I think that's a false narrative. But again, I think it depends on the role, right? Like if you're in an application security role, or maybe like an AppSec, or even, red team, pen testing, where coding is like a huge part of that, then of course if you don't have experience in that area and they're hiring for someone that can, write new scripts or write new rules or whatever, then there's going to be a mismatch, right? I think there are other roles where when I say technical, I mean more like on the infrastructure level, on the networking level, on the administration level, right? In terms of a network, in terms of an environment, right? And so that's how I use the phrase technical, going from like building PCs and understanding how to deploy a network and an infrastructure so that you can help to secure the enterprise. That's what I'm talking about, right? If you are handed the admin password that you can log in, go and configure something and, reroute traffic and, configure DNS and all of that stuff. That's what I mean. But I do agree with you that, again, the way that a lot of these job recs are written are like, they're actually looking for 5 people in one role, right? And it's very difficult for one person to have that much experience, right? Like we're looking for unicorns at this point. Not that they don't exist. Some folks do have that fantastic experience, but then what you're doing is you're excluding a very large population of individuals, right? So you're not looking at someone's capability or potential and how to like kind of exploit that in a good way. You're looking at like specific skills, and that's crossing a lot of people. And I think because of those experiences, a lot of women try to check off all of the boxes, right? Not just, hey, I know how to do this, this, and this, and I can speak to that, and I can learn that and that. I'm ready to apply, right? And I can articulate why I would be great for this position. I think that we get scared and we say, oh, that's not my background, so not gonna apply, skip. And then you get more men.
Yeah.
I'm curious if that's been your case as well. Oh, sorry.
No, for me, as a hiring manager, is definitely. But I always try to balance not only technical abilities, but also soft skills, because in my opinion, many times it's much easier to train someone to be really good technically because we have the tools, we have the training, we have the material, but it's hard to change someone's character. So I appreciate a lot the soft skills, and I have a lot of soft skills questions during my interviews because I really want to see if that person is a good fit for the team.
Right.
I think that's super important.
That's very important. Yep.
Yeah. And related to this, what advice would you give to the women, and not only women out there, who want to start a career in cybersecurity? Where to begin, right? Is there a particular path that you would recommend?
No. And the reason why I say no is because that's dependent on the person, right? I never like to give generic advice. I like to, and it's difficult to do this at scale, but I like to have like more one-on-one. Like if you were to call me or email me and say, hey, I want to start in this industry, I would take time to maybe say, hey, let's schedule a call, 15, 20 minutes, just so that I can learn a little bit more about your background, your experience, your interests, your skills. And I also want folks to do their homework, right? Like which area within cybersecurity are you interested in, right? Because I like to think about like cybersecurity as like a tree with like all these roots and all these branches that extend everywhere, like underground and above ground. It's like it goes everywhere. So like when you say cybersecurity, it's almost like you want to be a tree. Like what is it that you want to do? Like what are you interested in? What are you looking at exploring, right? So I like to ask those questions so that I could get a little bit more insight. And then I can help the person explore different paths, right? If they're like, well, I'm not technical, I'm not hands-on, I don't want to be configuring things, I just want to be able to translate risks, right? Maybe I say, well, I have someone that you can meet in governance, risk, and compliance. Maybe that would be a good path for you to explore. Or I have someone that you can meet in, XYZ domain. Maybe that's something to explore. Or if I have experience in the domain, I can talk about, processes and tools that they could look at, get hands-on experience in, etc., to be a more compelling candidate. So I think if I had to give generic advice, I would just say, do your research and understand why what you're interested in, and also understand your why, right? And there's no right or wrong answers. If you're just like, well, I want to go into cybersecurity because I heard folks make a lot of money, right? Okay, well, that's one thing, but it's going to be hard. Do you understand like what it is that we have to do to make that a lot of money, allegedly, right? So just kind of to be clear on your why, understand what exactly you're interested in, what you're exploring, right? 2 or 3 options so that you can then have a defined path, because it's very difficult to just be generic and get your foot in the door. And there are many avenues, right? There are many, many avenues. You can go the vendor route, you can go, the enterprise route, you can go the SMB route, and it all looks different, very different. So
I love that you just summarized chapter 1 and chapter 2 of my book, because I talk exactly about this. Thank you. Well,
of course.
And for the listeners, viewers, Yuri has a book called Beginning a Career in Cybersecurity. We highly recommend that you look it up and inspire in case you're interested in starting a career in cybersecurity.
I feel like you should get all of Yuri's books, actually. Like the whole compilation.
Julia.
Oh yeah, I was thinking, because you have so much experience, and I was thinking of not necessarily in the cybersecurity field, but what's a good mindset to have, especially in the era of AI, especially in the era of thinking that, well, I might not have the same job, or I might not have this job 1 year from now, especially in cybersecurity, because it gets so good that almost what you have learned in 5-10 years can be done in 1 minute now.
Yes and no. I think with any new technology, so I look at this as like, again, new technology that promises to revolutionize something, right? The technology's ecosystem. We've heard and seen this before, not at this scale, obviously, but we've heard and seen this before. There have been a lot of, revolutionary technologies in the last decade or two. And so what I would say is always be learning, right? Like, don't be afraid of testing and dipping your toe in the water when it comes to new technology, and kind of thinking creatively about how it could help you, how it could help your organization, like how it could help you during your day-to-day, right? Like, if an LLM can help me write a better statement to articulate a risk problem, I'm going to use it, right? Because it's going to help me, right? I'm not necessarily outsourcing everything to it today, but if it can be a companion, like my little pair programmer, why not, right? Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people are very afraid of this technology and think, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. And instead of embracing it and saying, okay, how can it help me? How can it help my organization? If I understand my organization's business or some of our use cases, how can I pitch or leverage these tools to help us internally? And then for your own projects and your own edification, like how do I help? How do I use these tools to help me at home, my calendar apps, or managing kids' sports or activities, or building projects, right? So I think embracing tools and not being afraid is a huge aspect or element, because I think a lot of people, the first reaction is to be like, afraid, block it now. We can't have this, right? And I just think the mentality that I would say is, again, going back to like the whole growth mindset, it's really not cliche. It's like being open to learning new things, being open to changing your mind, and being open to saying like, oh, I don't know about that, but I'm going to go find out, right? Being open to exploring. I think that also speaks to like your emotional intelligence. I think that helps to make you not job safe, because no job is safe, but I think that exposes you to like another area altogether, right? If you're resistant to change, good luck. If you're open to change and embracing change and looking at change as another competitive advantage, you don't have to worry about you're going to lose your job and you're not going to ever find another job. I think you'll be able to creatively figure out like how to pivot, right? And sometimes that may look different. Again, it really depends on your path. So that's how I look at it. I try to stay on top of it. I'm a very big believer in professional development. If I can't read, I'll listen to an audiobook. If I can listen to an audiobook, I'll read. I'll attend webinars. I will attend demos with vendors. I will speak to new vendors. Just kind of staying on top of it, understanding what's coming before it comes, and being able to like kind of pitch it internally, being able to demo it, I think is a huge competitive advantage. So that's how I look at things.
That's a perfect
Perfect.
And it's a perfect way to wrap up because we are on time here. And you just gave this nice food for thought for everyone listening when it comes to mindset and how to approach. Christina, outstanding. Thank you so much for your time, for your presence here. I know that you are busy, and I really appreciate you being here today.
I will never be busy for you guys. So thank you so much for having me.
We all are very appreciative. Thank you very much, Christina.
Of
It was
course,
lovely to have you.
welcome. Thank you so much.
For everyone, this is a wrap for today's episode. Make sure to visit our YouTube page, subscribe. We are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. And much more to come. See you again next time.